Is when they see falling stars. A hero will hold eyes in its prime, and the hero falls becoming art. The shock, the thought, the spark, and the lesson. Death brings the birth of legacy. Now you can pave your way to live eternally. I wrote this like 10 years ago. No, about 13 years ago, 2001. And like many people before me, I was inspired at a young age by the writings and reasonings of James Morrison. Jim Morrison is how everybody knows him, the front man of the Doors. As a fellow poet, singer, songwriter, performer, and fascinate of the unknown, discovering the eerie similarities of the reckless Dionysian path towards the rewards of excess, enlightenment, and such, I was provided with the means of wisdom to overcome what was once my own postulated certain lies. Jim was born in Melbourne, Florida, and that was in December of 1943. His father was a high-ranking naval officer, and his mother, she was kind of a domineering type party girl, very loud, very outgoing, and yeah. His family moved around a lot due to the typical military assignments, normal military life. And when Jim was 6 months old, his family moved to my hometown, Clearwater, Florida. And they stayed there for the next few years. They did move around to a couple places in between there, but the next major assignment for his family, their next major move, was to Albuquerque. And that was in 1947 when he was 5. On the way to Albuquerque, he came upon a scene of a Navajo family which was in a car accident. A few of them had died. The scene that he saw just left him horrified and scarred for the rest of his life. He became practically obsessed with this image of what he thought the spirits came into him when he was a child. So it left him with fear, an obsession of fear and fascination of the death and the unknown. And not too long after they got to Albuquerque, Jim's parents have another child. They have a brother and a sister. And as they grow older into adolescence, Jim maintains an emotional distance, and this is most likely due to the fear of loss and pain from when he saw this traumatic event, like I said, that scarred him. And he would do terrible things to him just to study like their reactions and what they do, and he would torment them, cruel pranks, and do things like put a rock in a snowball while they're having a snowball fight and slam a rock into his brother's face. He would destroy and tease his brother and sister with their favorite toys. And sometimes just pull them apart right in front of them or pretend to and then actually do it. He would pin them down and lean over their face and drop phlegm down into their face and then suck it right back out right before it hits them. Or he would just let it fall, or do it and then just let it fall. They never knew what was going to happen. Terrible things. And
let's go to sleep, bro.
one of the things another thing that I had that I remember him doing, not personally obviously, but remember reading about, is his brother and him were riding on a sled, and he was guiding the sled, and he directed it straight towards the tree, and at the last second he dove off and let his brother just slam into the tree. And he got pretty hurt there. So he definitely had some major issues there.
Yeah.
By the time he was in high school, he was pretty well read. He often shocked his teachers with unbelievable reports on books that they didn't even know existed. Things on the subject of Arab sexuality and 18th and 17th century demonology. They often went and had to check with the Library of Congress to confirm that these books actually existed, and, well, they did. In college, he attended St. Pete Junior College in Clearwater, Florida, and that was the first college that I attended, and that was in 2002. I stopped going due to life's distractions. Didn't get my degree then, so I'm back here now. These distractions were similar to the destructive patterns that were also exhibited by him, Jim Morrison, and later in life, and these things were alcohol, late nights, bands, promiscuity, drugs, and I was having way too much fun to stop doing any of that, because why not? I'm having a great time, so why would I stop doing that to do something that didn't seem better, because that sounded like fun. So Jim went on from St. Pete JC and on to Florida State, and then after that he went to UCLA, where he continued to further his education focusing on film, and he really started developing his ability to fine-tune his poetry, and that's what he really loved doing. After frustrations with his lack of dedication to excel in theatrical arts, he decided that although he earned a degree in theatrical arts, he wasn't going to pursue the film. He just didn't have the dedication to really see things through and to really give it all that he could. So he decided that even though he did earn his degree, he didn't even attend his graduation ceremony, and just as he did in high school, he had his degree mailed to him. He just didn't have the concern to even give that. After college, he enjoyed engaging in deep thought conversations with weird characters. One was a kind of a hunchback type of guy who was one of the only people that read more books than he did, and they had long conversations about his philosophy and such, and one of his favorites to talk about was also my personal favorite, and that's Friedrich Nietzsche. Jim's desire to write had definitely grew, and so did his desire to share his words. To a poet, words are sacred. It is the most intimate and authentic depiction of one's very soul. He had a friend, which was an old classmate, who was a musician. It was not too long before Jim came up with the idea that if there wasn't much of an interest in others hearing or reading his words, then perhaps he can have his words actually heard instead. This is also a conclusion that I came to long before I ever read anything into Mr. Morrison. And I decided that I would start trying to get my words out by singing with a few bands. And one of the main bands that I had worked with was with my brothers. We were playing music, and I decided just to write a song, and next thing you know, we're stopping around Tampa Bay, Florida, and having a great time. We did that for a long time. And that was the beginning of my decline into a very peculiar world, and I didn't know how to get out of it. Jim began collaborating with some friends soon after their band The Doors began to swiftly gain popularity. They were picked up by Elektra Records and began recording songs which topped the charts. They became overnight stars. The quality of life became just as grand as it was heavy. There was more money than miles traveled. There was more of a lack of sleep as there was women to sleep with. There was as much intoxication as there was thought. Only one thing could bring these guys down, and that was the gravity of it all. As time and success progressed, so did Jim's addictive tendencies. He would drink when he woke up, often wander around town the whole day today as a vagrant, continuing to seek further inebriation in conversations with homeless people and such. And he just lived life recklessly and let the consequences happen as they just happen to play out. When touring in a constant state of intoxication, he was unpredictable, and that seemed to be what his fans actually desired, his unpredictability. They never knew what he was going to do next. He also believed that the path to excess was what fueled the ability to not only bring out his artistic abilities, but also to the ability to lose control and put on a good performance. As time further went on, his dark inner child seemed to come out more and more. And at times, Jim seemed to exhibit a mixture of personalities. One was how the world seemed to view him without really knowing him, which was as a wild lover with a soft, romantic side of a poet. And the other side was a disturbed child that acted out, and sometimes violently and obscenely, and never resolved the issues of his childhood. When I was in the midst of my glory days, all the excess drinking, short chaotic romances, lavish limousines and parties, and of course all the drugs that were ever present, it came to a point where my creative abilities suddenly came to a halt. This is also the case for him as well. He stopped writing. He stopped enjoying things. And after months of writer's block, depression, self-loathing, he had a mental breakdown. So he decided to go ahead and try to regain focus on his writing. This was, after all, what his dream was to write and get his words out. So he came to a point where he decided that he would turn to a long-forgotten plan from his high school days. When he thought one day that he would move to France to disappear from the world, that the whole world that knew him, and to live in exile and write wondrous volumes of timeless poetry. Just a few months after, Mr. Morrison died of apparent overdose. That was in 1971. Jim Morrison often wrote and spoke of facing fears and gaining perspectives and the necessity of being willing to make the changes. He had the wisdom to see the reinvention of oneself can lead to great things, and he was right, and he did that. In the days of the Doors' early success, Jim was on a mission to guide those who were willing for a new perspective which could lead them to greatness as well. Once he became more than himself, he lost sight of how to make the necessary changes. He was too caught up in his dark world. And towards his last year, when he started to regain that sight, which I ironically intended to provide for others, and although he knew that what he must do to change to make things better and to proceed in life, he failed to maintain the focus and dedication to his rediscovered purpose, and he perished. Although I have always had an admiration for the depth and perceptions which Jim Morrison seemed to achieve and archive throughout song, poetry, and presentation, I have also been provided the insight on how to get past the barriers which would cause stagnation and decline. I've revisited the tragic thoughts of the story of Jim, and throughout new perspective, provided life's course. Yeah. Tragedy seems to provide new meaning each time. His story, his tragedy. Every time I consider and relook at it and see what he was trying to convey. And the irony remains each time is that just as poetry, his life seems to provide new wisdom and perception.